Hi everyone, this is chapter 9 of our Caro-Kann course, the King's Indian Attack. So the King's Indian Attack starts after e4, c6, and here white plays d3 on move 2. So when you see move 2, this signals King's Indian Attack, and we're going to go with our standard move here for the Caro-Kann, d5. And now white's going to play knight to d2. So this will be covered in the first 7 of our 10 variations in this chapter, and then we'll look at 3 different sidelines. So usually the idea here for white is they're going to play the same system every time, no matter what we play. Their plan will be knight f3, g3, bishop g2, and castle kingside. So what we're going to look to do in this chapter is to put the game in our court. We're going to look to find some lines that gain a lot of space for us, but then also pose some tough questions to our opponent.
Yeah, so I think the King's Indian attack is definitely a weapon you want to be looking out for. It's not like a super threatening way to go after the Caro-Kann. It allows us to really put white out of their comfort zone and not allow them their typical setup with all these moves that Matt just outlined. So we're going to get some good play here, and we have some fun recommendations to show you. So first recommendation that kind of breaks from our other chapters is we're going to play an early e5 here. White can respond in a few different ways. So they can play g3 immediately, c3, but we're going to start by looking at the more typical King's Indian attack move, and that's knight g to f3.
Yeah, that's the most popular move by far. You'll probably see that about 90% of the time there, knight f3. So here we're going to go with the strongest move in the position, bishop d6. It looks a bit funny. Why are we using the bishop to guard this pawn on e5? Well, there's a good reason for that. What we want to do is have the flexibility to move our queen somewhere later. So we're not using the queen to guard this pawn on e5, but also we want to keep the option open to potentially move this light square bishop out. So we're not going to play knight to d7 right away, which blocks in that bishop. So even though bishop d6 looks strange, why put it behind this pawn? It's actually a very flexible move, and it's the strongest move on the board. So here we're going to look at 3 different moves for white, g3, d4, and bishop to e2. g3 is the most popular. That just goes with their King's Indian attack plan. And here, this is the fun move that we're going to recommend, f5. We're going for a huge space advantage here. So you can see we have 3 pawns on the 5th rank to white's 1 pawn on the 4th rank. And what we're hoping is that this will also take white a bit out of their comfort zone. So we don't want them to just play this, the same first 8 or 10 moves of the King's Indian attack and get a comfortable position. This is something that's new. It's a little bit different, and hopefully we can confuse our opponents a bit.
Yep, so we have reached another fork, so no chess pun intended, but you will eventually look at e-takes, which I feel like should make us happy at first glance, giving us a really big center.
But we'll start. E takes f5.
This way, e takes f5, okay.
Yeah.
And then, but first we're going to look at white is continuing developing and fianchettoing their bishop.
And this is a line that I've had trouble with in the past when I've played the Caro-Kann. When white goes for the King's Indian attack, I never really had a good system. So I did a lot of research for this chapter. I really wanted to find something different than anything I've played in the past. I've tried a lot of different lines, but I think this is a really promising line that'll give us good winning chances. So here we're going with knight f6, and the plan is going to be to castle kingside and play f takes e4. And after that sequence of moves, we're going to have a rook sitting on f8 that actually points at this pawn on f2, which is potentially weak. And we might play like a bishop c5 move later to help double up on the f2 pawn. So now the most common move is castling, sticking with their system. And here we're going to castle. One note that I have here in our course notes, we could take on e4, f takes e, and that's a strong move. But we want to keep a consistent repertoire across the different variations. And I think it's actually the the trickiest to castle here first, keeping all this tension in the center, make the opponent figure out how to develop here. So we're not going to give them any easy options. So on this next move already, we're going to see the most popular move is an inaccuracy by white.
Yep, so white is going to play a very natural looking move and bringing the rook over to the e1 square. Nice prospects at a glance on this file, but we can immediately respond by taking the pawn. And you can see this rook kind of come to life, and our piece is just really coming into the game. White is going to capture back on e4 with their d-pawn, and now we have a nice big center here to work with. And as Matt highlighted earlier, we have some pressure now on this f2 pawn, so we're going to kick our bishop out and apply even more pressure there, leaving the d pawn a bit weak looking because you really can't defend it with this f pawn, and it's just kind of dangling here out, waiting for us to win it.
Yeah, and we're going to give you guys a bit of homework in this chapter. This is a very sharp line, and we don't want to go too deep on all the theory that we ask you to remember. So we want you to kind of look at some of these lines on your own. Play through them with Stockfish or play through them with a friend, because there's a lot of attacking chances for black. So here, if white plays knight takes e5, this position is already essentially lost for white. We have a winning position. So that's a line that you can look at a bit on your own. We're going to look at the most popular move, though, e takes d5. Now here, if you look at the combination of the rook and bishop both kind of eyeing that f2 pawn, we can already go for a really strong attack here with bishop takes f2 check. If white goes king takes f2, now what we want to do is prevent this king from running back to the g1 square. So we play queen to b6 check. King e2. And now we play c takes d5. Jesse noted before we started this video, it's a quiet looking move, but the idea is we want to get this knight developed to the strongest square. So our plans are knight c6, pawn e4, knight to g4, and we actually already have a close to winning attack in this position.